Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today, I've got another Gun Gripe episode for you, and today we're going to be talking about, all right, do drones make firearms obsolete? All right, so there's been a lot of points of contention about this, and I want to kind of weigh in on it. I know some people have their thoughts about all these weaponized drones, and I know lots of folks have been making videos about drones, and in particular, we're talking about weaponized drones. We're talking about the kind of drones that can be used in place of a firearm to carry out, reconnaissance, surveillance, or all-out warfare. All right, I'm sure many of you have seen a lot of videos coming out of Ukraine, specifically Ukraine, that show a lot of really deadly things going on with these drones and stuff. So I want to elaborate on it a little bit. Before we do, I want to thank our friends at Sonoran Desert Institute for supporting today's video. If you're looking for a career in the world of gunsmithing, they're definitely your go-to source. They've got some awesome distance learning programs, wonderful curriculum, great instructors. Sonoran Desert Institute is absolutely the go-to source if you're wanting a career in gunsmithing, if you want to learn how to fly drones. That's oddly enough the subject of today's show. Or if you want to learn more about the business administration side and learn how to run a gun business, how to, keep up an FFL, how to work on guns, SDI is definitely your go-to source. So check them out. Tell them Eric sent you. And a big thanks to them for being a long-term supporter of my channel. So I've done some videos before where I've talked about different shotguns and different options that you can use to defend yourself from drones. And let's look at this very pragmatically as if we were discussing, let's say, any other type of technology, right? Okay, so if we look at two countries that are engaged in war, let's use war as an example, all right? We could even use a particular war as an example. Why don't we use a war like, let's say, World War II, right? World War II was one of the first wars that really was an industrial war as much as it was any other type of war, right? It wasn't just guys in trenches shooting at each other like World War I, right? Like there was this entire, industrial mechanism that was behind all of these people producing tanks and bombs and airplanes and all of the accoutrements of war, the mechanized accoutrements of war. And when you think about a country's ability to win a war, it can really only be outpaced by another country's ability to produce more of a given, let's just say, a highly effective accoutrement of war, such as, let's say, a country has, triple the amount of planes than the other country that they're fighting. Well, it's safe to say that 3-to-1 is a good ratio to where, okay, maybe you can take out their air defenses or take out their air force because you have a numerically superior air force. Or perhaps you have a more technologically advanced air force with, maybe you have them matched on planes, but the generation and technology of your planes or bombing capabilities or whatever technology you may want to enter into that is so much more advanced than your enemy. So this is where guns come into play versus drones. You've noticed that a lot of the political pundits on both the left and the right, doesn't it seem like they've kind of pulled back on gun technology a little bit? They've pulled back on really caring so much about going after gun owners or going after guns. Now, of course, on the state level, you're going to see lots of things that are happening, like, recently in Colorado, they passed another assault weapons ban. So yes, at the state level, you're going to see a lot of shenanigans, but it's safe to say that federally, the appetite for gun control has not really been considerably high. And I wonder if this question has ever been posed by anybody. I had a discussion recently with some of the leadership at the NRA. And it's funny, like I brought this up and the response I got was kind of silence. Okay, my argument, well, not really my argument, but what the question I posed was like, should we as a Second Amendment community need to really be paying attention to drones as potentially being the next frontier on, what we put our foot down against, right? Like if the government has access to drones that can simply fly themselves into you and self-destruct, does it matter if you have an AR-15 or if you have a single-shot shotgun or if you have whatever you have in terms of technology, a machine gun, a suppressor? Well, right now there's soldiers over in Ukraine with full auto AKs and rocket launchers, and no telling what other type of military accoutrements, including tanks, artillery pieces, you name it, they have it. And drones are flying into those guys and blowing them up left and right, right? Now a tank is obsolete because now a tank is just a giant rolling target. All it takes is a skilled drone operator to fly a decent enough drone into the right spot on a tank, and they can disable a tank. So we now have these cruel and unusual weapons, right? I mean, drones are a game changer on the battlefield, and they are completely changing the way that infantry tactics are. They're changing every tactic of the way a modern war will ever be fought again. And again, going back to World War II and going back to, let's just go back to airplane production, all right? The country that can outpace the other country on manufacturing is the one who's going to beat that country ultimately, right? We noticed that here in the States. What did Hexef just do? He moved U.S. drone manufacturing to the U.S., right? He's ramping up domestic drone production, domestic microprocessor and computer chip production, and all of the small electronics required to build drones are going to be produced here. Because you don't want to place your ability to manufacture something like a drone into a foreign country who, let's say that if China is producing a whole crap ton of these drones, right? That's one thing China can do is mass produce stuff really well, and they have the capabilities to mass produce a heck of a lot. So I think one of the biggest concerns that our present military has, right? If you go to one of these military conferences or a police conference and you're listening to what the leadership of the military is saying about, what kind of technology do we really want to focus on to increase the warfighting capabilities of our soldiers? The number one culprit is drones. It's not, hey, what's the newest SIG belt-fed machine gun, or what's the newest sniper rifle, or what's the newest mortar system, or what's the newest tank or airplane. No. What's the best way to combat drones, and what's the best way to have the most deadly drone? That is the conversation they're having. So if the military is having these conversations, it means they know that drones are such a game changer, right? A drone can be manufactured for very little money, very cheap. So now you're talking the enemy has a multi-million-dollar tank with no telling how much technology in it. And you mean to tell me that an 18-year-old kid hopped up on Mountain Dew can just fly a tank mine into that tank and in the right spot and either destroy it and kill the crew, or at best disable that multi-million-dollar tank where it can't be used against you? That's a powerful thing. That is a powerful concept that, hey, if you can, for very little money, if you can cheaply disable the enemy's very expensive equipment, that is a net win, because now you are forcing your enemy to spend a metric ton of money on something like a tank or an airplane or a helicopter that can now be destroyed with $1,000 drone, right? And when you start doing the cost triage here and you go, okay, well, yes, we have Tomahawk missiles and cruise missiles and all these smart bombs that can deliver a payload in a specific area. Now, instead of having to call in a very expensive bomb from an airplane or maybe a large expensive drone that costs a lot of money, now a soldier on the battlefield can deploy a small drone and drop hand grenades in one single foxhole, right? He can drop them in very specific locations. A hatch is open on a tank. You can drop an incendiary device in there and burn the whole freaking tank up for next to nothing. And in some cases, they're reusing those drones if they make it back from their mission. So drones are a very cost-effective way to cause absolute and utter pandemonium on the battlefield. The concern that many people, such as myself, who see the writing on the wall, the concern that we have is that the government will misuse these type of technologies against their very own civilians. Okay, let's say that it's one or two drones and you have a shotgun and you can shoot a drone out of the air and survive. Okay, cool. Yeah, you could shoot a drone out of the air if you're lucky. You can shoot maybe two drones out of the air if you're lucky. But you have to remember, that's not what we're talking about here. We are talking about a future where there are so many drones in the air with bombs and guns and no telling what other type of mechanical death-dealing devices you can ever think of, whatever type of technological hell you can imagine. And there'll be so many of them that even 10 of your buddies with semi-auto shotguns that hold 12 shots like this one will not be able to fend them off, right? Now, the government will have the ability to, how do I have a short range EMP? Or, of course, they have the ability to fend these drones off, but you will not. So that then means that, okay, does that now make small arms obsolete? I mean, when it comes down to going toe to toe with someone with a fleet of 100 drones, that might make that a suicide pact, okay? So my concern with the leadership at the NRA, what I mentioned, and also I've had this discussion with all of the gun groups, sort of, laughingly, but in jest. But there is a serious component to this conversation. If we do not have the ability to weaponize drones in the same way that they do, then we are going to be at a huge disadvantage. We are going to be technologically outgunned, and we're not going to have an ability to stand up against the people that would do us harm. And if we're going off of the track record of, let's just say, governments around the world, not even so much our own government, but governments in general, governments always have a tendency to want to gain power over the civilian populace and exercise that power and remove the people from their society who they don't deem to be down with their political, ideologies, right? Be it communism, whatever. Governments love removing people from society that give them a hard time in carrying out what they want to carry out. The Second Amendment shall not be infringed, right? The right of the people to keep and bear arms, right? And i.e., deal with their government in the event that they become tyrannical, right? At what point do firearms now become a moot point when now these drones are so much more deadlier than a firearm could ever dream of being? So it's an interesting crossroads that we're in right now, and perhaps something that people have not considered and talked about enough. Everyone sees what these drones do. Everyone sees what they're capable of. No one has access, generally, not without breaking a whole bunch of laws. No one has the ability to weaponize a drone anywhere near the same level that our own government does. And at what point are they going to use this type of technology against you or I once they realize that the gun genie is never going back in the bottle? That's the only thing I want everybody to think about today. They know that that genie is not going back in the freaking bottle. They know it, okay? The question is, how far are they willing to go to obtain the control that they really want when they know that it's not going to be done with small arms? I just want to put that food for thought in your head. Perhaps some of you have not thought about it. Maybe you have. I think we need to work with lawmakers, and we need to ensure that these drones are either A, going to be banned from use against civilians, or we have to have some sort of promise from them that they're not going to be used here for that sort of thing. Or two, we're going to need to have access to the same technology they have. If it's good enough for an infantry platoon, it should be good enough for us. I've always stood by that. Some people disagree with me on that, right? I understand. I get it. But as someone who's been there and I've seen what people are capable of and I've seen some evil in the world, I don't trust a stranger to be responsible for my safety. I trust myself to be responsible for my own safety. And I know what tools are necessary for me to carry out that task. And I know how to use those tools quite well. And I'm going to have access to the best tools possible that I can get my hands on to protect myself from anyone, criminal or rogue government or whatever the case may be. I very much believe in the spirit of the Second Amendment and exactly what it's intended for. And so many people beat around the bush about what the Second Amendment means. And, it's about hunting, it's about this, it's about that, it's about target shooting, it's about recreation. No, it's not. The Second Amendment is about the end user being able to back up what they say and stand toe-to-toe with a tyrannical government. You have to remember, our founding fathers just got done fighting a revolution, and they were making this ultimate grocery store list of things that they wanted the government to stay away from. That's what that is, okay? First Amendment, all right, well, yeah, people have obviously got to be able to say what they want, because that was the one thing that kind of got us on the path to even coming here and founding a nation, because we were being, misled, and the governments in England, the kings were telling us what we could and couldn't do, and we didn't like, to be put in jail for saying something or believing something, right? So they believed, they understood that importance. And they also understood that you need to be armed to defend the words that come out of your mouth, defend what you say, defend your point of view, and protect your life from someone who is willing to use deadly force to basically get you to do whatever they want you to do. So if someone surrounds your house with 100 drones, yeah, you can have a full auto M16, you can have a belt-fed whatever, you can even have hand grenades, you could even have a law rocket for that matter, and it's not going to matter. So drones completely change the landscape of how the government is going to enforce their views against you. And I think more people need to be talking about the dangers of drones, particularly when only the government has them and we don't. That puts us at a huge disadvantage, no matter what you have in terms of guns. Once they surround your house with 100 drones, what do you can't do anything. They literally have the upper hand, and you're not going to really be able to do a lot against that. So I think that's a serious conversation we need to be having as a society. Don't let them discount the idea if they try to say, oh, well, we would never fly those kind of drones here in this country and hurt our own people. Yeah, we've heard that before. I don't trust those people as far as I can freaking throw them, and you shouldn't either. All right, so I think we need to be having a very serious look at, what we're going to do about these drones, how to combat them, how to have the similar technology. What do we have to do legally? Do we have to remove certain restrictions, FFA restrictions? What do we have to do to, be toe-to-toe with them and in step with the Second Amendment? And everybody always wants to treat the Second Amendment like, oh, we have to restrict this because we could only have muskets back in the day. And in their mind, they think, oh, well, all the Second Amendment gives you the right to do is have a musket, right? Well, what happens when the government achieves such deadly power that we can't even begin to get close to it within hundreds of feet of it? What happens when they have that kind of power over you? And now this gun that they've hated for so long becomes a little more obsolete. So has anyone ever considered what happens when the technology gets better and better? And then now as this better technology comes out, be it drone technology or be it small arms technology, that they're going to somehow try to, kick that can forward and say, oh, well, this new and deadly, I don't know, say they come out with a space laser or some type of energy weapon. And they try to say, oh, well, the Second Amendment only protects small arms that use gunpowder, not energy weapons. I mean, this is a very broad and let's just say fantasy-based scenario, but that's what I'm talking about. If some futuristic space gun or something comes out, right? We have drones now, but what is that? In 20 years, are we going to have energy weapons, directed EMP weapons? Are we going to have weapons that can fry someone's brain or make them go crazy or insane, like a mental weapon? So is that to say that as the technology grows, what are we doing as a group of people to ensure that we are always going to have access to the same types of things that they have so that they can't have a monopoly on violence? That's my only concern. So something to think about. I hope you all have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. Definitely check out SDI. Great group of people. You can find the link down below. Go check out what they have to offer. And you can learn how to fly drones, which might be important eventually. So thanks so much. Many more videos on the way, and we'll see you soon.